1-inch Jade Fairy. Why did Ling Longzi die? On the side of Deacon Sect, Cheng Yi recovered from his shock. He quickly walked to the front of the ancient golden chariot and asked in a low voice. The surrounding crowd couldn't hold themselves back anymore. They all landed on top of the mountain, waiting for the opening of the discipleship ceremony to enter the Heaven Divine Mountain. No comment. Jade Fairy's cold voice was heard from the ancient golden carriage. The words she said caused Cheng Yi's facial expression to change. Did you and that kid kill him? Suppressing the anger in his heart, Cheng Yi asked again. He didn't see Ling Longzi's corpse, so he couldn't believe that Jade Fairy could defeat Ling Longzi. Cheng Yi, according to the rules of the sect, after the Battle of Saints ends, I won't be restricted by you all. Jade Fairy's voice was heard once again. There was no emotion in her voice. Cheng Yi's expression was cold. He looked at Xuan, who was surrounded by the people of the Heavenly Sky sect. Xuan's movement technique was very agile, and he dodged the attacks of the people quickly. He didn't seem to be injured at all. How is this possible? Lu Junyuan's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. If it wasn't for the fact that he was surrounded by the crowd, he would have stepped forward and tightly grabbed Jade Fairy's neck, forcing her to find out where Ling Longzi was. A peerless genius who could use the Great Sun heavenly skill. How could he have died here? Ling Longzi is indeed dead. No matter what, my Deacon Sect has won. Mrs. Huang's face was filled with joy. She stood next to Cheng Yi and said softly, the Deacon Sect has won. This meant that the Deacon Sect would be in control of the grand ceremony next time. Boom! Above the void, the people of Heavenly Gan Sect attacked. Lu Junyuan was surrounded. Naturally, they wanted to capture Xuan and find a reasonable explanation for Ling Longzi's death. Given the latter's strength, even a monarch cultivation wouldn't be able to do anything about it. In the Great Light world, no one would believe that Ling Longzi was the one who was defeated. Several origin chi chains slashed through the void, shattering the void. They were about to pierce through Xuan's limbs and bones. Each attack carried a sharp killing intent. Xuan's eyes were cold and indifferent. Starlight was constantly surging around his body. With the help of the Starlight Silent Step, he dodged the attacks of the crowd again and again. However, it was difficult for him to fight with two fists. Furthermore, the numerous origin chi chains had sealed off his path of retreat in Heaven Divine Mountain. Brat surnamed Xiao, come with us. The leading middle-aged man had an extraordinary bearing, but his face was gloomy at this moment. Ling Longzi's sudden death had caused them to be unable to let go of it for a long time. Xuan lifted his eyes gently and did not speak. Before the light curtain disappeared, he had made an appointment with Jade Fairy. The latter was in charge of restraining the people from the Deacon Sect. What he needed to do was to get rid of the experts from the Heavenly Sky Sect. Everyone, the Battle of the Saints is just a good show to open the entrance to the Heaven Divine Mountain. There is no difference between life and death. A gentle voice suddenly sounded from afar. It was full of spirituality. In the next moment, a figure covered in golden light gently stepped into the void. His face couldn't be seen clearly, but looking at his body, it was as gentle as a willow tree. His words were ethereal, and he had a myriad of bearing. Who are you? The middle-aged man in the lead frowned. His breathing was suddenly stifled. He actually felt an inexplicable pressure from this mysterious figure. This kind of pressure was something that even Lu Junyuan did not possess. I'm sorry, I have protected this kid. Who in the Heavenly Gan Sect wouldn't accept it? Just come and fight me. The golden figure took a step forward and golden light swept out, wrapping around Xuan. The latter did not even have the time to block it before he left with the golden figure. Who is this? This brat really has many tricks up his sleeve. Seeing Xuan being rescued from afar, Cheng Yi cursed in a low voice, but he had no intention of chasing after him. No matter what, Ling Longzi's death was an unexpected event for the Deacon Sect. As for Xuan, he naturally wouldn't pursue the matter any further. Senior brother, are you going to chase after him or not? Seeing Xuan being easily rescued by their chains, the experts of the Heavenly Sky Sect weren't stupid. They naturally knew how terrifying the former's strength was. Immediately, they looked at each other and couldn't help but look at the middle-aged man. Phew. Who? The middle-aged man's face was pale as he gasped for breath. Cold sweat was dripping down his back. The moment he left, he could clearly feel the terrifying gaze from the golden figure. It was as if he was being stared at by an ancient ferocious beast, causing his entire body to tremble. Forget it. The middle-aged man clenched his teeth and wiped the sweat off his forehead. He waved his hand helplessly. The feeling of falling into an ice cave caused him to feel fear. Whoosh! Fierce winds swept by his ears. By the time Xuan recovered his senses, he had already arrived at an unfamiliar mountain stream. The golden light around his body had dispersed, and he raised his head to look around. The surrounding mountains were high and tall, and waterfalls were hanging upside down. Towering ancient trees were lush and verdant, and it was unknown where he was. Who are you? After calming down, Xuan leapt up and looked vigilantly at the golden figure in front of him. The latter's entire body was covered in golden light. Based on the slender figure that was faintly discernible, it should be a female without a doubt. Swoosh! The golden light from the female in front of him scattered. Xuan only felt a slight trance in front of his eyes. In the next moment, a majestic voice was transmitted over. Xuan, right? Do you recognize me? As he spoke, a big man wearing a red robe walked out in large strides. He had a solemn expression and a majestic bearing as he walked. Profound Emperor? When Xuan saw the big man's face, he suddenly recalled that when Black Nether Emperor broke into the Yunluo Academy, the Great Elder agreed to meet Heaven's surmounting monarch. Profound Emperor had returned together with him. After that, he was fortunate enough to meet both of them in the academy. Naturally, he had a deep impression of them. Previously, Heaven's surmounting monarch said that you have come to Mingan Divine Domain. Before I came here, he told me that you can be considered half a disciple of him. If I see you, I would like to protect you. I never thought that I would meet you in the Heaven Divine Mountain. Profound Emperor's voice was as loud as a bell. Xuan was stunned when he heard it, as if the ethereal voice was just an illusion. What are you doing in Heaven Divine Mountain? Don't say that you are here for the discipleship of the Heaven Divine Mountain. At such a young age, if you cultivate well, you will definitely be able to achieve great things. Profound Emperor turned to Xuan and said with a smile. Xuan smiled bitterly when he heard this. Compared to Heaven's surmounting monarch, he didn't have much relationship with Profound Emperor, but now that he was saved by Heaven's surmounting monarch, he owed Heaven's surmounting monarch a debt of gratitude for saving his life. The grand event of Heaven Divine Mountain has already spread across the Mingan Divine Domain. It was just a spur of the moment that I came here to witness the grand event. In the end, when I met an old friend, I couldn't help but take action. After hearing Xuan's words, Profound Emperor couldn't help but laugh out loud. Good kid, the Saintess of Deacon Sect is your old friend. Your face is too big. Xuan smiled awkwardly and didn't say anything. Ling Longzi's death really surprised me. Profound Emperor glanced at Xuan and smiled meaningfully. He seemed to be mumbling to himself. I have heard from Heaven's surmounting monarch that you have a stubborn temper. Now it seems that it is true. This, Master Heaven's surmounting monarch, did you really say that? Xuan could only smile bitterly and could not refute. That's enough. Looking at the current situation, the Deacon Sect will not attack you. As for the Heavenly Gone Sect, I will think of a way to delay them. You should leave Heaven Divine Mountain as soon as possible. The corner of Profound Emperor's mouth raised slightly, and he was about to leave. Are you here for the quota to enter the Heaven Divine Mountain? Xuan raised his eyebrows and asked in a suspicious tone. Or else, do you think everyone is like you, just here on a whim? While they were talking, Profound Emperor had already disappeared from where he was standing, but the voice he heard had become incomparably ethereal and fascinating. 1 inch it's hard to understand. Xuan shook his head and threw his doubts to the back of his mind, whether it was Heaven's surmounting monarch or Profound Emperor. Neither of these are things he can figure out now. Boom! Boom! All of a sudden, a buzzing sound could be heard coming from the depths of Heaven Divine Mountain. It spread across the entire Heaven Divine Mountain, bringing along a shocking roar. 8 beams of light soared into the sky like 8 dragons soaring into the sky. They shattered the void and soared into the sky, then turned into origin cheese that filled the sky. They once again hung upside down. Amidst the dense multicolored gas, the rainbow light illuminated the entire Heaven Divine Mountain. It was magnificent and magnificent. The heavens and the earth were dyed, and finally, peace returned to the world. The next moment after the rainbow light dissipated, a huge bridge of light that looked like a rainbow that pierced through the sun emerged from the depths of the Heaven Divine Mountain. It was like a flight of stairs that connected the heaven and earth. It extended for tens of thousands of miles and reached the void above the sacrificial peak. Xuan, shall we go? The Xiaoao quietly appeared. It looked at the huge bridge of light in the distance. Dense human figures had already flown onto it. They stepped on the bridge of light and headed towards the depths of Heaven Divine Mountain to fight for the right to enter the Heaven Divine Mountain. Ling Longzi had communicated with the word Yang when he was alive. His potential was boundless, and his blood was naturally rare to encounter in 1,000 years. After the opening of the bridge, the number of people who could enter the Heaven Divine Mountain had increased by 3 times compared to the previous years. Go! A golden light flashed across Xiaoyan's eyes. His tone was firm. His purpose in coming to the Heaven Divine Mountain was not just to witness the grand ceremony of the God Mountain worship ceremony. The competition for the spots was the most exciting part of the ceremony. You have to think this through. Those old men who have almost reached the end of their lifespan will risk their lives to fight for the quota to enter the Heaven Divine Mountain. Even if we work together, we can only run away. Besides, those people of the Heavenly Gone sect will definitely hate you to the core and will hunt you down with all their might. If you go now, won't you just walk into a trap? The Xiaoao said with a worried expression. Don't worry, I'm not interested in those few quotas. Let's enter the depths of the Heaven Divine Mountain and find a place to nourish the fire subhutis sapling. I believe that the deepest part of the Heaven Divine Mountain will provide the best soil. As for the Heavenly Gone sect, we will take advantage of the chaos to enter. They won't be able to take care of us. Xiaoyan smiled. He was well aware of his worries about the Xiaoao. Immediately, he spoke slowly and voiced his thoughts. After a few days of stormy night, the green seedlings had grown fully. However, there was still a huge gap between the growth of the fruit and the green seedlings. If it was a coincidence that he entered the depths of the Heaven Divine Mountain this time, he might be able to completely mature the green seedlings. Upon hearing this, the Xiaoao could only agree. What he was most worried about was that Xiaoyan and the others would fight for the few quotas. Those guys who had almost reached the end of their lifespans would do whatever it took to obtain those quotas. No matter how strong Xiaoyan was, he would still be defeated. After making up his mind, the two of them immediately left. Their movement technique, monarch skill, was unleashed to the limit. Like 2 shooting stars, they instantly disappeared into the mountains. 8 spots. Ling Longzi's talent is truly terrifying. Narrowing his eyes, Chang Yu whispered to himself. After that, he couldn't help but feel delighted in his heart. The Battle of the Saints had come to an end. The Deacon sect had obtained 3 spots. Thinking of this, Chang Yu looked at the ancient golden chariot behind him. Jade Fairy had been silent the entire time. Until now, he still didn't know what had happened in the Great Light World. Although the Heavenly Gone sect was extremely furious, the Battle of the Holy Sun had already ended. There was nothing they could do to change anything. The Heavenly Gone sect. On the other side, Lu Zhenyuan's expression was ugly as he watched the black mass of people rush onto the Bridge of Light. His heart was bleeding. The amount of effort that the Heavenly Gone sect had put into Ling Longzi's body had been destroyed. He had never thought of such an outcome. He was rescued, right? Who was it that dared to make our sect our enemy? Taking a deep breath, Lu Zhenyuan mumbled to himself. Cold light overflowed from his eyes, and he had already prepared many contingency plans. The quota to enter the Heaven Divine Mountain. Now, not a single one of them is left. With so many people chasing after 5 quotas, it would be best if all of them die. A trace of mania surged into Lu Zhenyuan's heart. He coldly harumphed and cursed in his heart. Among the people in the Heaven Divine Mountain, only a small portion of them were fighting for the spots. The rest of them were only thinking of taking advantage of the opening of the Heaven Divine Mountain to search for treasures. Those who stepped onto the Bridge of Light were filled with the desire to die. Almost all of them had reached the end of their lifespans. If they couldn't obtain a quota to enter the Heaven Divine Mountain, they would die within a few years. To them, this was their last hope. The process of fighting for a slot in the depths of the Heaven Divine Mountain was even more dangerous. After countless battles, they were finally able to join the competition. At the same time when the Bridge of Light extended out, Shen Shuiwei raised his eyes and looked at the rainbow in the sky in a daze. Then, he smiled brightly and looked at it. Behind him, several figures were flying over. Each of them contained a terrifying qi. Sacred Lord Yin Yang has been peerless throughout his life, but this junior actually acted like this. This is truly a disgrace to him. Shen Shuihui laughed loudly, and his voice reverberated throughout the mountains. The experts behind him were all enraged, and their speed of pursuit became even faster. They were the hidden guards of Deacon Sect, and they knew that Shen Shuihui possessed a sacred weapon. So, they immediately sent out several elites to kill him and seize his treasure. In the vast Heaven Divine Mountain, the red light on Shen Suyu's body had already faded away. If he deliberately hid himself, even if the Deacon Sect used all their strength, they wouldn't be able to find him. However, this guy seemed to be afraid that others wouldn't be able to find him. He openly exposed his aura, which was the only way to enter the Heaven Divine Mountain. Immediately, he was discovered by the hidden guards of Deacon Sect, and they chased him all the way here. Here, whoever touches a hair of mine, I'll give you the sacred weapon. With a twist of his body, the tip of his foot crushed a huge rock that was as tall as a man on the cliff. Shen Shuihui pointed his finger at the group of people who were chasing after him, and his words could not hide his arrogance. You don't know the difference between life and death. The hidden guards of Deacon Sect were basically all above the Emperor cultivation. Every single one of them was an unparalleled existence amongst those at the same level, and their combined monarch skill was more than enough to threaten a monarch cultivation. When they heard Shen Suyu's arrogant words, all of them were infuriated, but they could only curse in their hearts. In terms of movement technique, there was no way they could catch up to Shen Shuihui. 1, 2, there are a total of 10 of them, and 6 of them are hiding in the dark. 16 Emperor cultivation, and with the secret technique of the Deacon Sect, they should be able to defeat a peak monarch cultivation by joining forces. That's enough. Shen Suyu's eyes lit up, and the corner of his mouth curled up. Once again, he flew towards the depths of the Heaven Divine Mountain. The hidden guards of the Deacon Sect caught up with him. Everyone's heart was burning with anger, and they wanted nothing more than to kill Shen Shuihui on the spot. The bridge of light floated in the void, and steam rose from it. It spread out from the depths of Heaven Divine Mountain, and numerous experts rushed towards it. The light was surging, and it was only for the sake of fighting for the chance to be reborn. Those who dared to step onto it were naturally those with formidable strength. Besides that, there were also many people who had other thoughts in their minds. Xiao Yan and the Xiao Ao were mixed in the crowd. When they raised their heads and looked, almost all of them were above the Emperor cultivation. Occasionally, there would be a few monarch emperor who were flapping their origin chi wings. Immediately, they were submerged in the crowd. Swoosh, swoosh. The bridge of light seemed to shrink into an inch of land. In just a moment, everyone had gone deep into an unfamiliar mountain range. There were countless mountains of different heights, as if they had come to an extremely primitive era. In a trance, they could see the scene of the ancient era. 0 inches rumble. Countless huge deer covered in thick black fur ran wildly through the mountain stream. Along the way, the mountain rocks fell one after another. Under the 4 hooves of the huge deer, they instantly turned into powder. Like a black torrent, they disappeared into the mountains in the blink of an eye. Roar! Several giant apes that were the size of small mountains leapt up and ran through the mountain range, causing the earth to tremble. They stood up and chased after the group of deer like a violent storm. The giant ape's large hand was like a millstone, and the giant deer that was lagging behind howled in grief. Under the fist of the giant ape, they directly fainted, becoming food for the giant ape. Cree! In the blink of an eye, a clear ringing sound came from the horizon. A few black dots arrived like lightning, and the giant golden bird with the wings of half a giant mountain roared down. Its sharp claws suddenly stretched out, and instantly pierced through the bodies of several giant apes. Black blood sprayed into the sky, and it flapped its enormous wings that blotted out the sky as it rushed into the depths of the lofty mountains. At the end of the bridge of light, everyone stopped here. The scene just now had appeared in front of everyone's eyes. The ferocious beasts in this place all possess a primeval bloodline. If it was not because of the suppression from Heaven Divine Mountain, they would have long gone out and wreaked havoc on the world. An old man who was about to die breathed heavily as he spoke. His turbid old eyes swept across the endless mountains in front of him. He let out a miserable laugh and said, "It's almost certain death for me to enter the Heaven Divine Mountain. This is my last chance. Everyone, do as you wish." After he finished speaking, the old man's stooped body suddenly straightened up. A vast and mighty aura suddenly surged out from him. It was only at this moment that everyone realized that this ordinary-looking old man in front of them had already reached the peak of the monarch cultivation. Swoosh! The old man's body moved. The origin chi wrapped around his body and he stepped into the void. In an instant, he had disappeared into the mountains. The strength of the people in the past was enough to run amok in the depths of the Heaven Divine Mountain. This place is too dangerous. If you only want to see the true face of the Heaven Divine Mountain, you should leave as soon as possible. A few old men with white hair stood out. They cast a sideway glance at the crowd before striding into the mountains. A commotion instantly broke out in the crowd. Before long, nearly half of the people had already retreated hesitantly. Although they were powerful, in this place, they couldn't even compare to a single primitive alien creature. The square that was formed by the great light world instantly became much more spacious. Everyone fell silent. Those who could come here naturally had profound horizons. They naturally knew what entering meant. There was a high possibility that they hadn't been able to find a spot and had instead lost their lives in vain. The quota to enter the Heaven Divine Mountain was like a rainbow as it was hidden within this endless mountain range. Although it was like finding a needle in a haystack, as long as one was within 10,000 miles of it, they would be able to clearly sense it. Comparatively speaking, it was undoubtedly much easier. A long while later, someone finally took large strides forward once again. Xuan lifted his eyes and looked over. It was Profound Emperor. He had the appearance of a strong man. He had been standing in front of everyone, looking energetic. He stared at the endless mountain range in front of him and stepped forward without hesitation. With Profound Emperor as the lead, the hesitant crowd began to rush towards the mountain range. They had come here to bet everything on this. If they couldn't find a place to enter the Heaven Divine Mountain, they would just die here. Among them, there were naturally some strong people who were unwilling to give up. They wanted to enter and find out what was going on. After all, it was rumored that the Heaven Divine Mountain was the training ground of the Yin-Yang Saint Master. If they could obtain any good fortune, everything would be worth it. Xiao, let's go. Xuan did not hesitate. He was in high spirits. In this place, he could clearly feel that the origin chi, which was thicker than the outside world, had a mysterious feeling. It made him believe that he would be able to achieve a breakthrough in this place. The Xiao gently nodded. The auras of the two of them were suppressed to the lowest. The origin chi around their bodies whistled as they flew towards the exit of the great light world. They did not directly fly towards the mountains like the others. Instead, they leapt down and entered the endless sea of trees below. A mere emperor cultivation is delusional enough to seek fortune. There were a few monarch cultivation sovereigns in the public square of the bright world. When they sensed the auras of Xiaoyan and Xiaoyan, they disdainfully smiled. They did not take it to heart. Instead, they looked at the endless mountain range. Some hesitation still surged into their eyes. They did not dare to rashly take this step. Swoosh! Before he landed on the ground, a strong wind suddenly sounded beside his ear. Xiaoyan did not have time to think as his fist suddenly struck out. It was as though it had hit a rock. Although it sent the attacker flying, there was a faint pain from his knuckles. Their eyes flashed. The two of them could clearly see the attacker's appearance. It was a giant brown scorpion that was about the height of a person. The color of its body was perfectly hidden in the forest and it was extremely difficult to detect. Hiss hiss. The large scorpion spat out its scarlet tongue. Its fist-sized red eyes revealed a trace of bloodthirstiness. The large poisonous needle at its tail flickered with a black light. It carried a fatal poison. Xiaoyan's punch just now had hit the poison hook of the former. Fortunately, it was not contaminated by the poison. It is also a primitive alien creature. It should belong to the poison dragon scorpion's bloodline. The Xiao's gaze was like a sword as it stared at the giant scorpion for a while. Its expression was grave. If it was contaminated by this poison, it was afraid that the situation wouldn't be able to recover in a short period of time. An ordinary monarch emperor would die from spasms if they were touched by it. This place is isolated from the outside world. If the Mercenary Alliance finds out about this place, I'm afraid they will try their best to get in here. Xiaoyan smiled and stared at the giant brown scorpion. Although the scorpion wasn't very strong, he had to be careful of the venom at its tail. At the same time, his soul force had already surged out from between his eyebrows. He carefully observed his surroundings. In this place, he had to take one step at a time. That might not be the case. If Li Xianfeng doesn't restrain himself a little, he will die without a complete corpse. The Xiaoao had the ability of the previous life, so it could sense more than Xiaoyan. It sensed the circulation of the desolate qi in the mountains and reminded him in a low voice. Swoosh swoosh. As the two of them conversed, the giant scorpions seemed to have sensed their strength. It disappeared into the forest and left quickly. These primitive alien creatures all had quite a bit of intelligence. Although they were restricted by the Heaven Divine Mountain and were unable to take human form, they were extremely sensitive to life and death. This place is relatively safe. Most of the powerful ferocious beasts are in the depths. It's a good place for cultivation. After carefully scanning every inch of the land within a few dozen miles, Xiaoyan opened his eyes and nodded. His soul force had been greatly suppressed in Heaven Divine Mountain. The souls in the illusion realm could cover 10,000 miles in the outside world, but he could only observe this place for 10 miles. This was one of the main reasons why he didn't use his soul force to fight Ling Longzi. After saying that, Xiaoyan carefully took out the green seedling of the fire Bodhi tree. Under the rain of thunder for several days, the green seedling had already grown strong. Although it was less than half the height of a person, it was still growing on a few branches. There were nearly 10 red fruits the size of longans growing on them. There were actually wisps of flames lingering on the fruits. This kind of flame, it was the purest flame that belonged to the Heaven Divine Mountain. It was also the necessary fire of the Heaven Divine Mountain that Xiaoyan needed to restore the 1,000 Leaves ancient monarch fire. 0 The vast mountains, the endless sea of trees, the violent winds. One after another, towering ancient trees, their life force was terrifyingly vigorous, and they carried a desolate aura that suppressed everything in the world. The depths of the Heaven Divine Mountain was a scene from the primeval era. Outside of the mountains and under the ancient trees, Xiaoyan sat cross-legged. The green seedlings planted in front of him were crazily absorbing the vast and mighty origin qi. The green leaves were flickering with a faint light, and a trace of lively life force was emitted from them, making them look even more robust and healthy. Just as Xiaoyan had expected, the origin qi in the depths of Heaven Divine Mountain had an obvious effect on the growth of the green seedlings. In such a dangerous situation, Xiaoyan could not cultivate in peace. Although this place was located outside of the mountains, there were still countless ferocious beasts lurking in the darkness. If the two of them were to relax a little, they would suffer a violent storm of attacks. Although the two of them had maintained a high level of focus, they had still suffered nearly 10 sneak attacks within 3 days. If it was not for Xiaoyan's spiritual strength being able to detect it in time, it was likely that they would have been successfully captured by these ferocious beasts, which were extremely good at disguising themselves. Sacred Lord Yin Yang is really generous. Heaven Divine Mountain has almost become his backyard. After killing a giant python with dark red patterns, the Xiaoao couldn't help but be speechless. This giant python was nearly 30 meters long, and its strength was shockingly great. When the snake's tail swept across, the rocks instantly turned into powder. With just the strength of its body, it was strong enough to fight an emperor cultivation. A ferocious beast of this level would definitely be far stronger than a heavenly beast of the same level in the outside world. Sacred Lord Yin Yang had used a great technique, using the mysterious power of Heaven Divine Mountain, to create a desolate world. Countless primitive alien creatures were reproduced and rested here, as if it was a world outside of this world. Xiaoyan nodded in agreement. A trace of clarity suddenly flashed across his mind. He didn't know if the ancient sovereign who had been resurrected from the Heaven Divine Mountain had the strength to fight against Sacred Lord Yin Yang. The ancient sovereign's resurrection would bring him a long lifespan, and at the same time, his strength would also increase tremendously. Another old monster had appeared in the Heaven Divine Mountain, and he didn't know what kind of shock it would cause. Not bad. Xiaoyan recovered his senses and looked at the green seedling that had grown by leaps and bounds in front of him. The corner of his mouth was lifted slightly. The fire Bodhi tree seedling, which was almost the height of a person, had a fiery red fruit attached to its branches. It was like a burning flame that contained a force that could not be ignored. Waves of flame aura spread out, causing one's heart to tremble. Bang! Before he finished speaking, a thunder-like loud sound suddenly exploded in the northeast. In the next moment, countless towering ancient trees were uprooted. Many small mountain peaks were on the verge of collapse. Thousands of huge rocks rumbled as they fell. For a moment, Countless ferocious beasts wailed in pain. What is it? The Xiao was startled. Then, its expression changed. Its small face turned pale as it said, It's a ferocious beast. How can it be so powerful? Xiao Yan's expression became serious. He scanned the surroundings with his soul energy. A small mountain of giant beast emerged from the ground. The giant beast was in the shape of a tiger and wolf. Its body was like a mountain, and it was emitting a violent aura. Its eyes were as big as millstones. It stood up and looked around for a moment. Then, it strode towards where Xiaoyan and Xiaoyan were. Let's go. It was attracted by the fire Bodhi tree's qi. The Xiao reacted in an instant, and cold sweat broke out all over its body. It could clearly feel the purity of the ancient bloodline in the ferocious beast's body. Its fur was fluttering in anger, and its blood energy was overflowing into the sky. It was actually showing signs of returning to its roots. It was not something that the two of them could match. Xiao Yan made a prompt decision. He mixed the soil with the soil and quickly put away the fire Bodhi tree. His mind was connected to the Xiao. The two of them cast their magic and quickly rushed into the mountains. There were countless Heaven Divine Mountains in the depths of the Heaven Divine Mountain. Only by entering this place would they have the chance to get rid of this ferocious beast. Rumble. Seeing Xiao Yan and Xiao Yan leave, the giant beast let out a low roar, and the wind and lightning rolled like a bolt of lightning. Its huge body was extremely agile, and wherever it passed by. Boom! 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 All the ancient trees were turned into dust. The ground trembled, and all the beasts retreated. This big guy definitely has the strength of a monarch cultivation. Fighting it head-on isn't a solution. It's best to lure it to the territory of another ferocious beast and fight it head-on. The two of them swiftly flashed across the sea of trees. Xiao Yan's mind calmed down. His spiritual strength swept across his surroundings. The silence between the mountains was frightening. He was unable to find the resting place of another ferocious beast in a short period of time. Don't worry, the ferocious beast here has a very strong sense of territory. If we suddenly barge into such a big thing, we won't need to look for it to come out on our own. The Xiao seemed to be very familiar with this kind of environment. The two of them suppressed their auras to the lowest and quietly flew through the forest. Dong! As the two of them were discussing, a loud sound suddenly erupted from behind them. The unscrupulously charging of the giant beast into the deep mountains had finally attracted the attention of a couple of primitive alien creatures that were circling around this place. A blood-red python quietly wrapped itself around a short mountain peak. When the giant beast passed by, its enormous body rushed out like lightning and firmly trapped the giant beast's enormous body. Its bloody mouth seemed to be able to swallow a small mountain, making the ferocious beast unable to take a single step forward. Ow! The ferocious beast roared towards the sky, its voice shaking the heavens. Its thick and powerful claws suddenly pierced through the python's steel-like body. Dark black blood poured down like a rainstorm, pouring onto the ancient trees below, instantly withering away. It had only been one round of exchange between the giant beast and the giant python, but the giant blood-red python was already on the verge of death. The light in its blood-red eyes was flickering. It was thrown into a mountain peak by the giant beast, instantly attracting countless fist-sized black carnivorous ants. In just a moment, only the bones were left. After easily killing the giant python, the giant beast raised its head and roared at the sky. Then, its red eyes flickered, as if it had sensed Xiao Yan's position. It stepped on countless huge trees and chased after him like a storm. The fire Bodhi tree's qi can't be concealed. It's coming again. After witnessing the strength of the giant beast, Xiao Yan and the Xiao naturally wouldn't fight it head-on. Helpless, they could only rush into the deep mountains once more. Fortunately, the only thing that could sense the qi of the fire Bodhi tree was the big fellow behind them. If all the primitive alien creature could sense it, Xiao Yan and the Xiao would have no choice but to flee. Along the way, the giant beast fearlessly killed a few primitive alien creatures that came out to provoke it. The desolate bloodline in its body was extremely rich, and it naturally had a suppressive effect on ordinary primitive alien creatures. If it wasn't attracted by the aura of the fire Bodhi tree, it would still be lying on the ground, waiting for the right time. Its bloodline would return to its roots, and it would become a true desolate bloodline. The fire Bodhi tree would undoubtedly have a great effect on its bloodline returning to its roots. The feeling of pursuing something that originated from its bloodline made it extremely excited. I remember now, this primitive alien creature should belong to the Nightmare Beast bloodline. It is almost identical to the real Nightmare Beast. The Xiao turned around and couldn't help but exclaim. This fellow's bloodline had already reached an extremely terrifying degree of atavism. I don't care what it is. I have to find a way to get rid of it no matter what. Otherwise, the fire Bodhi tree will always be a hot potato on my body. Xiao Yan gritted his teeth and was about to speak again when his eyes suddenly lit up. He looked into the depths of a lofty mountain range and grinned. There's someone, and he's even a monarch cultivation. Quote, "Two trouble comes from the east." This was the only feasible solution that Xiao Yan had come up with. If he didn't get rid of the Nightmare Beast, he wouldn't be able to let the fire subhuti grow in peace. With his current strength, even if he joined forces with the Xiao, he would still be no match for the Nightmare Beast. The bloodline in the latter's body was too pure. Even a human of the same level wouldn't be able to gain any benefits from it. In the high mountains, the Nightmare Beast tore through the endless sea of trees and strode over. It was like a moving mountain, shaking the heavens and earth. The sound of breathing was deafening like thunder. The ferocious pressure was like a huge wave that covered the sky. It actually caused the numerous primitive alien creatures in the mountains to tremble, completely submitting to the Nightmare Beast's vast aura. Evil creature. Before they arrived at the mountain range, a loud shout suddenly sounded out from within. Following which, an old man flew out. His cheeks were high, and his messy white hair was messily draped over his shoulders. His yellow robe was in tatters, and he looked like a poor beggar. The old man was deep and serene. His eyes were like a vast ocean as he looked at the overbearing Nightmare Beast. His expression involuntarily changed slightly. Immediately, he let out a cold snort. His eyes searched the surroundings. It was impossible for this giant beast to suddenly appear for no reason. It was definitely attracted by someone. Once he fought with this giant beast, he would be able to sit back and reap the benefits. "Sir, you have gone too far, haven't you?" The old man's expression was gloomy. His search was fruitless. All he could do was to let out a loud cry that resounded over a mountain range. Xiao Yan and the Xiao were hidden in the mountain forest. Soul energy spread out and messed up their qi. They even used a concealment technique to completely conceal their qi. Even if the other party was a monarch cultivation sovereign, he would not be able to detect them at all. Under the cover of the sea of trees, the two of them quickly moved towards the mountain like spiritual monkeys. The old man stood in the void and focused most of his attention on the huge Nightmare Beast. He did not notice Xiao Yan and the old man's whereabouts at all. Roar! The Nightmare Beast's mountain-like body rushed over at high speed. Its wild and violent aura was revealed without a doubt. The old man was like an elephant and an ant in front of it. The difference in size between them was thousands of times. The old man cursed in his heart. He had chosen this place after entering the depths of the Heaven Divine Mountain. He had spent a great deal of effort to construct a formation here in order to find a spot to enter the Heaven Divine Mountain. Now that the formation had just been completed, he had never thought that such an unexpected guest would suddenly appear. "If I find out who it is, I will definitely kill all of your family and friends once I leave this place." The formation in the mountain was his painstaking effort. He couldn't abandon it no matter what. It was already too late to take it away. The old man's heart was bleeding. Although he knew that the giant beast in front of him was terrifyingly powerful, he could only make a move to deal with it. Hoolalala! 7 blood-colored chains appeared out of thin air. Each of the chains carried a vast and mighty origin qi. As the chains surged, space seemed to shatter. It was like a blood-colored flood dragon as it smashed out with lightning-like speed. The old man followed closely behind. The origin qi all over his body was like a dragon as it rampaged down. Blood light surged within his palm, and it had already transformed into a full moon curved blade. Blood moon burning Gu. The old man's white beard and hair were all parted, and the blood within his body churned. It was as if he was activating some kind of secret arts, and the veins on his neck were bulging. His previously sickly appearance was swept away. The whistling origin qis around his body seemed to have condensed into an endless amount of qi and blood. Like a waterfall, it hung upside down. The full moon blade in his hand slashed across the sky. The blood qi in the sky surged wildly. The old man appeared like a blood demon that had descended into the 9 hells. The origin chi turned into countless drops of blood that shot out explosively, turning into a rain of blood once again. In a split second, he had actually completely devoured the nightmare beast's enormous body. Buzz buzz. The 7 origin chi chains were like 7 seals, rumbling in different directions. The full moon scimitar in the old man's hand was like a key that formed a seal. 100,000 feet long blood-colored saber light slashed down from the void. The 7 blood-colored chains rumbled, and endless blood chi filled the air. The nightmare beast was firmly trapped, and the ladder was cast by the blood rain. Its entire body seemed to be on fire, and it was caught off guard by the 7 chains. Its struggle was futile. It could only watch helplessly as the 100,000 feet long saber light fell. This fellow has gone mad. He's burning his life force to deal with the nightmare beast. Within the lofty mountains, the Xuan looked at the scene outside the mountain with shock, and its eyelids twitched as it couldn't help but exclaim. Xiaoyan frowned tightly. The chaos and decisiveness of the old man had completely exceeded his expectations. He originally thought that the old man would deal with the nightmare beast for a moment before leaving. However, he did not expect that the old man would fight with the nightmare beast without saying anything. Moreover, he had burned the remaining blood essence within his body as the price. For an old man like him, who had almost reached the end of his lifespan, he would cherish his life even more. There was no reason for a monarch cultivation nightmare beast to make him attack in such a manner. Is there anything that can't be put down in the mountain? Xiaoyan's eyes sparkled as he looked at the mountain. While he was hesitating, he was looking at the mountain. 100,000 feet blood-red blade light had already slashed down from the sky. It pierced through the invincible force and directly cut off half of the nightmare beast's body. Roar! Roar! Black blood sprayed into the sky, and the nightmare beast roared in pain towards the sky. Its enormous head was connected to half of its body, and all kinds of internal organs flew about in all directions. The other half of its body fell down with a loud bang, as if a mountain had collapsed. Clang! The sound of metal colliding with metal could be heard. The tremendous pain stimulated the nightmare beast's nerves. Its huge body suddenly broke free from the shackles of the chains. The 7 chains wailed and dispersed. The old man seemed to have used up all of his strength. A wild and violent aura blasted over, and the old man was sent flying. He's not dead yet. The Xiaoao widened its eyes and looked at the crumbling nightmare beast in shock. Only half of the latter's body remained. Black blood flowed out like a storm. Each drop of blood was sufficient to pierce through a mountain rock. The nightmare beast's red eyes were as big as millstones. Due to the intense pain, it roared in pain. In an instant, it trampled all the mountain ridges around it. The strength of its chi and blood was shocking. Oh right, its bloodline has almost returned to its roots. Its healing ability should be terrifyingly strong. This kind of injury isn't enough to kill it. The Xiaoao suddenly understood. It looked at the nightmare beast, which had half of its body cut off, and could only secretly click its tongue. Xiaoao, let's go. Seeing that the old man and nightmare beast had a victor in an instant, Xiaoyan did not delay any longer. With a soft shout, the two of them immediately flew into the deep mountains. What a pity. If I were a few thousand years younger. With this move, the evil creature will die for sure. The old man's expression was ugly, and he had aged a lot. The years and months did not spare him. The experts of the generation who had commanded countless levels of cultivation had also reached this stage. Damn it. Otherwise, in order to find a place to enter the Heaven Divine Mountain, this guy would be full of treasures. Forget it. Gritting his teeth, the old man immediately walked into the deep mountains. In his opinion, such a serious injury was no longer a threat to him. I say, let's leave this place as soon as possible. Once the nightmare beast recovers, I'm afraid that we'll kill everyone to vent our anger. Hearing the furious roar of the nightmare beast that shook the entire area, the Xiaoao showed a rare trace of worry. When the sky collapses, there will be a tall man supporting it. What's there to be afraid of? Xiaoyan was extremely carefree. When the Xiaoao heard this, it couldn't help but twitch its mouth. This fellow's heart would always be so big. This is a formation? When he stepped into the deep mountains, Xiaoyan immediately discovered a formation hidden in the forest. A strange fluctuation kept coming from the center of the formation, attracting everyone's attention. In the Yunluo Academy, it was because of the spirit origin formation. He also had some knowledge about formations. The formation in front of him wasn't very high level, but the effect it displayed made people look at it. What a strange fluctuation. It doesn't seem like it's used to absorb origin cheese for cultivation. Xiao Yan went forward and pondered for a while. The formation covered a very small area, and it formed many complicated seals. In the center of the formation, there was a crystal ball, and a faint light suddenly flashed.